share the platform with pets or beautiful, magnificent children. And I think both of them are beautiful, magnificent children. And I thank you for the gift that you've given us today. Peyton, you had every high note that your mom has too. Wow, it was just beautiful. I appreciate it so very much. And guess what? I want to tell all of you before I begin with the talk today, you matter to me. You know, people were asking me, we're going on a trip to Italy here in just a few moments, and I will be leaving in probably, the length of the talk will be in direct proportion to the airline reservation. And they said, why don't you just go over there right now instead of being here? And I'm here because you matter to me, and I would not sacrifice being here present to my family, to the people I care about, to the people that are far more rich in experience than any trip to Italy, Greece, Ireland, or anywhere you could possibly be. That's why I'm here today. So I hope you take this as a context that you matter to me, and that's why I'm standing here today. I want to begin the talk today by acknowledging that we as human beings are one of the most complex systems on the planet. Yes? Look around. We are complex people, a system of thought, of belief, of experiences, relationships, and judgments. Yes? It all is existing here in this sphere, in this field, right here, right now. There's not any two of us that are exactly the same, with the same view of life. There's not any two of us sitting here today that have the same view or experience of life. And that's a magnificent, beautiful thing, isn't it? It makes this life diverse, like a great patchwork quilt. Unique perspectives, but also in the beauty, it can be some of our greatest challenge. Yes? We have differences of opinions, and sometimes that can look like this. We have different ways of looking at life, and sometimes that can look like this. But our job as spiritual seekers is to create a patchwork quilt whereby everything is working together. Even though some of the patterns might conflict, they all come together in a magnificent whole. That is a beautiful patchwork quilt. One of the most intimate and possibly one of the most complex of all our human experiences is that we call mom. Mothering. Mothering and being mothered is the most natural and beautiful and magnificent part of this great human adventure. And because there are human beings doing the job, it is perhaps more complex at every level than any relationship that we can possibly have. We acknowledge today that every one of us came in here with a different experience of mom. A different experience of being mom, and that includes you men too, because you are mothers of a reality. You are mothers of a life, and so you're not off the hook today when we talk about the difficulty and the beauty of that patchwork quilt. You are included in the discourse today. No two of us are having the same experience of mother, and no two of us are having the same experience of mothering others. It's beautiful, it's magnificent, and it's a great tapestry, a great quilt that sometimes is ragged and torn. No two of us are having the same experience of raising kids. And it's a wonderful thing, and it has challenges. And it can be ragged and torn, much like an old quilt. As I think about mothering, I remember the patchwork quilt that my grandmother made for me in kindergarten, that I used to lay on the floor for nap time. I can still smell it. I can still feel it. I can still taste it. Yes, I did nibble on the blanket. I was a bit of a neurotic kindergartner. I had issues. I had anxieties. So I tasted the blanket too. And that ragged was torn up. It had holes in it. It was jagged on the edge. And if I just looked at that blanket from the outside looking in, of the context of the blanket, the look and the judgment of the blanket itself, it was an experience that was so-so. If I looked at the divine idea, the magnificence underneath the surface of the quilt, something was beautiful and warm that I can relive today as I think about laying on that quilt. The exchange of energy between my grandmother and myself. The exchange of energy that my grandmother gave my twin brother and myself as we laid on the same blanket together in kindergarten. It was a big blanket. I can still feel it in every cell of my body, and I want to receive that, even though my grandmother was not perfect. Even though my brother certainly was not perfect. I got all the good genes. And here's the reality today. Mothering, life itself and mothering can be all about context. It can be all about what we see with our human eyes and we experience with our humanness. It can be all about the jagged edges. It can be all about the challenges. It can be all about the things that don't look like they go together. And my grandmother was very eclectic, and she put every piece of material she could find on the ranch to put into that quilt. Some of them worked really well. Some of them thought, could she have put this on the other side of the quilt so it wasn't so clashing? But the reality is, mothering is like that. And we can look at the idea of mother only from the context of the human experience. The judgments, the experiences, the relationships, the difficulties, the good, the bad, and everything in between. It's all a part of the exercise. But that's not what we teach in Unity. Our job as Unity students, whether it be with mother, with father, with brother, with sister, with anything in life, is to look at the divine idea that's underneath the jagged edges. To look at the good that is there underneath the surface. The reality is, if our life is based upon only what is on the surface, that which we can sense with the five senses, only that which is jagged and maybe doesn't match, we're going to be in a place of suffering. If that's the only context you have, and you're measuring your life by context, you're going to put yourself into a place of suffering. We as Unity students want to get to the place of peace, the place of heaven, the place of oneness that exists beyond that. Beyond the patchwork quilt is the divine idea of love that my grandmother shared. However misguided her behavior might have been at any given moment. Our context of this human experience, this earthly journey, if we are looking only at context and not going to the place of the love that is at the source, the one power, the one presence, the one goodness that is there, that's where heaven is going to be. In the context only, we're going to be in a place of suffering. And so our job is to look beyond the behaviors of our moms or our children, to look beyond the words, the emotions, the actions, good, bad, or otherwise, to the good that is underneath, and to always look there. Here's a reality. Regardless of the tone of your experience of mother or mothering, the consciousness, you see, we teach that life is consciousness, not context. Your life is about consciousness, not context. And I will put something out there. Cause and effect are never separated by time and space. What does that mean? Your mom's behavior when you were 5 or 10 or 12 or 20 or maybe yesterday will not be the cause of your current suffering or your current bliss. Because cause and effect are not separated there. You are the cause. The consciousness you bring to the context is what's determining heaven or hell. And that's the same for right now. Your mother could say something this morning when you call her up that you don't like. Are you going to live in the context and take it as hurt or as attack or whatever it is? Or are you going to go to the consciousness underneath? It says, I behold the divine idea of mom, of mothering, underneath that. Even though the divine idea appears to be twisted, appears to be turned, it's coming from a good place. Because everything, and I want you to hear this, everything comes from a good place. Every experience and every relationship has at its core, at its root, something holy, something sacred, and something good. So I hate to tell you, but your current view, your current life, as you are experiencing it today, is being determined by your view of mom. Your current life experience, heaven or hell, is being determined by how you are viewing your mother today. We might want to do some cleaning of house. Your current life today is in direct proportion to the view you are having of your children or the people that you mother in your life. There's duality. It exists in the relationship because, as I stated, it's a complex system. Our job is to be conscious, to remain awake, to be fully present to the consciousness underneath and not the context on the surface. So I want you all to do me a favor. How you're sitting right now, you're sitting in a chair. I want you all to just shift. Maybe shift to the other cheek. Shift an elbow. Just make a shift. Change your body position. Now that wasn't hard, right? Was that difficult to make a shift? No. Today, I am inviting you and challenging you to make a shift internally. That is just as easy as the shift you made right there. Maybe not quite as simple. That no matter how good or not so good the expression and the experience of mother or mothering is in your life, it can be better. There's more good to be revealed. There's more magnificence to be revealed. I want you to shift today. Mother's Day is not just about once in a year saying, okay, Mom, here's some flowers, we're done. Or once a year, I get together with my friends and I bemoan the terrible experience I had with my mother or with my kids. That's a waste of time. I want Mother's Day to be a moment of shift in perception, a moment where you actively, consciously say, I'm going to reveal a greater good here, and I'm going to be the birther of a new reality. I'm going to be the mother of a new reality, and I will not let context define my life anymore. I will let my consciousness be the birther. I want to begin that shift today by examining all the ways that divine ideas of mothering show up, the many faces of mother, and I know they all are represented here today. So to those who have given birth to a child, we celebrate with you. We celebrate the magnificence of that beautiful miracle of life. We celebrate that with you today. And to those who have lost a child who are sitting here today, we mourn with you. And we mourn with those children as well. To those of you who walk a path of infertility, we walk with you. And we understand the difficulty of that. Yet we claim the truth and affirm the truth that you are still a mother of the thought that you just had. The people around you, you can still be a mother. To foster moms, to mentor moms, to adoptive moms, to spiritual moms, to mother figures. How many people have a mother figure in your life that is not biologically your mother? Go find them if you don't have one, because it's the most beautiful relationship you can have. We bless all of these different ways that moms show up. Good, bad, and otherwise, we bless them today. To those of you who have warm and fuzzy and magnificently close relationships with your mom and with your children, we celebrate with you today. And we celebrate with your children today. And to those of you who have some disharmony, to those of you who have disappointment, heartache, or distance between your children or your mother, we hold you today. But we don't just hold you, we hold them as well. Because there is goodness there. There is a divine idea there. And so we hold it all. We as community become a sacred container for something greater to be revealed. A container of consciousness, not a container of context. We don't excuse behavior, but we allow the Christ awareness to go to a deeper place and to behold the good even when it is dark. Yes? To those of you who step-parent, we walk with you, knowing how complex that job can be. To those of you who are single and long to be a mother, we are holding a hope and a prayer for you that idea is coming to fruition. To those of you who have lost your mother, we grieve with you and we grieve with them. For those who are giving birth to new realities, and this would be probably every one of you, giving birth to new realities and new paradigms, we acknowledge you as a mother of the experience that we're all sharing. And to those of you who are asleep, who are not aware that you are giving birth every single moment, every thought, every feeling, every action. To those who aren't aware of that, we lovingly wake up with you. You want to know why I come to be in community and want to be here? Because I get to wake up with you. You get to remind me and I get to remind you, and we all get to serve as a collective motherhood, a collective awakening as we challenge ourselves, as we acknowledge ourselves, each other. And suddenly a new paradigm comes just because we're living in the energy of love, in the energy of consciousness, stepping away from our disagreements. Our context does not define us. Consciousness does. Meister Eckhart is one of my heroes, a 13th century mystic. He instructed us that we are all meant to be mothers of God. Every one of us. We are meant to be mothers of God, for God is always needing to be born. I love that idea. The very essence of life itself, the light, the joy, the love, the magnificence of life itself is wanting expression. And you're not here on this earthly plane by accident. You are here to give birth to that life longing for itself. And you can call it God, you can call it whatever you want. It is the one source and the one power and the one presence that's expressing us everywhere. And it wants life through you. That life that is God itself is constantly asking us to serve as a midwife, to pay attention, to be conscious, to leave your sleepwalking and to pay attention that the thought you just had created an offspring. The feeling you just held about somebody else, The thought and the feeling you had about your mother or your child just birthed a reality. Good or not so good, I don't know. That's up to you. But you are the mother of that reality. Charles Fillmore, one of the co-founders of Unity, writes this in The Revealing Word: motherhood is the nourishing element of divine mind in which spiritual ideas are brought to fruition. Motherhood is the nourishing element of divine mind, the allness. Divine mind is a name we give to God in Unity, in which spiritual ideas, the spiritual perfection of motherhood, of peace, of joy, of health, of abundance, of whatever it is, are brought into fruition, brought into manifestation. You are created in the image and after the likeness of God itself, the one power. That means you were born creative. You are born to be a creator. You are born to be a mother. And it has nothing to do with whether or not you have a female or a male body. You are giving birth. And so the spirit of motherhood within each and every one of us, that creative impulse that we all have to leave a mark on the world, to create something beautiful around us, when that creative impulse meets the longing for life that is the presence of God, bam, life happens. When your creative desires and movement within you meets the longing of life, the longing of God, and that's all that God knows to do, is to have greater and greater expression. When the two meet, and this is not a dualistic environment, this is all contained within the one. When those two energies come together, bam, progeny is happening. You've just given birth to something. I want to ask you, what are you birthing today? What are you birthing on this Mother's Day? A sense of duality and separation, or a sense of oneness and unity? What offspring just came into being through your last thought? What offspring just came into being through your last action, your last feeling, your last thought? And does that offspring resemble the children of the corn? Or the Brady Bunch? Does it resemble Damien from The Omen? Or does it resemble Ferris Bueller? Or does it resemble June and Ward Cleaver? It's all up to you. But here's a magnificent, wonderful idea, that unlike the physical children that we create, the manifestations of our thoughts can be changed and shifted in a moment. I've tried to shift my children in a moment. It doesn't work so well. Usually, when this is going on and I try to shift them in a moment, this gets stronger and more powerful, and you're in a power struggle, and guess what? As the parent, you lose every single time. So when that longing happens, and bam, you have an awareness that you might want to shift a new reality, create a new paradigm in the manifest realm. You, as the creator of life, can do that. And it's as simple as I went to the other cheek. I went to the other elbow. But don't we resist that? Don't we fight that? No, I want to hold on to my anger. I want to hold on to my resentment. I want to hold on to the fact that my mom did not give me what I wanted, or my children should give me what I want. I'm going to say, let go of that bull. Let go of that bull and be the creator of a new paradigm. Knowing that your mom or your children may not meet you in the exercise, but your heaven on earth will emerge in direct proportion to how you are focusing on that relationship. The patchwork quilt of the relationship and the experience. You're either judging it as tattered and worn and mismatched, or you are judging it as the divine idea of love that is underneath. That is our job. And so on Mother's Day, it needs to be an exercise of lovingly but very strongly speaking to the parts of ourselves that have accepted that it was okay to live in an environment whereby mom, child, or any person is viewed only through the context, the lens of context, and not the lens of what we call in Unity Christ consciousness. Buddha nature. I don't care what you call it. It is the part of you that's untouched by the context. It's the part of you that doesn't care if the quilt is tattered and worn. It's the part of you that knows there's something good here, and I'm going to discover it. I'm going to find it with every cell of my being. This Mother's Day, we need to have a conversation with the part of ourselves that has not found any good in any human being on the planet. I don't care who it is. It may be your mother, your uncle, your brother, your sister, your child. It may be somebody you've never met, but you've put a judgment out there. That's the conversation that needs to happen on Mother's Day. I know that's a complex system, and sometimes it means confronting an awful lot of pain, an awful lot of disappointment. But in unity, we don't let context guide our lives, because we are rising above and transcending the suffering that comes with that kind of dialogue. And we're moving to a place of spiritual truth. Here's an idea, and then I got to go catch a plane. My mother, my grandmothers, I absolutely love them. I love my father, and I love my grandfathers. And they all did the best that they knew how. Were they perfect? Not even close. Not even close. None of them were perfect. And guess what? I have to then localize that truth here. I am a father. I am a grandfather as well. And am I perfect? No, I am a complex patchwork quilt. And there's parts of that quilt that my grandchildren adore and love. There's parts of that quilt that my children just think is magnificent and fun, sometimes a little too clowny. And then there are parts that they probably would like to just leave off the quilt. How did this make the quilt? I don't want to receive this. I don't want this. I've got that quilt from my father. You know, it's that old Michael Byers song. I love to play it around Mother's Day and Father's Day. And the title of the song is, "Help, I'm turning into my parents." Here's the reality. You are turning into your parents, and rather than fighting it, that's energy. That's a part of you. Receive it, good, bad, and otherwise. And then make a new choice, make a new decision to take the energy underneath it and create a new context. To use your consciousness to create a new context, and thus evolution happens. Evolution will never happen if we're constantly cursing the behavior of another, if we're constantly pushing the behavior of another away from us, what they gave or didn't give to us. No evolution is happening. My job is to do it better than my dad did it, and my mom did it. And my grandkids will do it better than I did it. And guess what? Heaven on earth emerges, one relationship, one complex relationship at a time. With all my flaws and all my goodness, my grandkids are going to have to make a decision at some point, what they take and what they don't take, but that's not my job. That will never be my job. Their job is to label what I've given them as a blessing or a curse. Your children will label what you've given them as a blessing or as a curse. All you get to do is hold the sacred container of possibility. And that same exercise applies to my parents, and especially to my mother. You know, my grandmother, I play the piano today because my grandmother pulled me off the baseball field and said, "Here's a scale." I'm grateful for her. I received that into my quilt. I also inherited some arthritis from my grandma on my dad's side. Every time I wake up and I feel like I need an Advil, I think of my grandmother, and rather than blessing I inherited that, I go, I can do it better. Thank God there's medicine to help me do it better, because she lost the ability to play piano. I look at my grandmother on my mom's side. And let me tell you, I'm often accused of being a workaholic, but I value the gift that my grandmother gave me, which was a work ethic, to do a job and to not waste the time by not doing it well. I received that onto the quilt that my grandmother gave me. I received the goodness that my mother gave me in all of her flaws and imperfections, because she did not express emotion. But boy, did she show that she loved me in other ways. I learned to speak my mom's love language. And when I did, my experience was exponentially better. When I was trying to get my mother to speak my language, it didn't work. Suffering happened. Context was a mess. The choice is ours. The choice is yours. My counsel today is, on this Mother's Day, don't waste the celebration. Don't waste the holiday, and shift. Just shift a little. And you may be sitting there today going, well, the context of my mom and me, it's perfect. It's perfect in every way. I'm going to say, as good as it is, you make a little shift and open up to a different possibility, it's going to get even better. And you may be sitting there today going, I want no piece of reaching out in forgiveness to my mother. Every sage and prophet throughout history taught the power of forgiveness. And certainly in the unity, we look at Jesus as the great example who taught us to forgive. It was the cornerstone of his ministry. Perhaps you can make a shift today and forgive that little flaw. Forgive that ragged edge of a patchwork quilt that you inherited. Forgive the mismatching pieces of the quilt and go, there might be something here I have missed. Surely the presence of God was here, and we all missed it. Let me be awake. Let me be the one who is the changer of the paradigm. The new reality is coming to be. You are meant to give birth to God. Don't waste the opportunity. Give birth today, on Mother's Day, and every single day from this point on, by knowing you are the very creative center of your universe. Don't waste the gift of your mind and your heart and your being and your actions as the birther and the mother of a new reality. We're going to move into a time of meditation. I've got my